Hellos and welcomes everyone, AnthWolf here with more Pillars of Eternity. We arrived in Defiance Bay and we entered one of the taverns known as the Goose and Fox, where we beelined it for this lady here, Keener? I'm never very good at pronouncing names, and especially sometimes names like that when it's the A and E together. I don't know which way you say it. We beelined it for her and gained a side quest to return her fiance's ring, or ex-fiance I suppose it will be now. We have a few more people. I guess we can peer into their souls. There's quite a few people actually. I think there's a group of 3 down here. But we'll explore the rest of the tavern first, just to see if there's anyone else we can talk to.
Steady does it.
In fact, there's a few people here we can probably try and steal from the place. Ooh, hello.
I can do that.
We shouldn't really do this, but... oh well. Plus 20 defense while stunned, plus 20 defense while prone. Interesting. It's a quite nice ability. Hide armor for Kana to sell. Brad Ferris. Oh well, we might as well start talking to some people. Hello there, Brad. You can reach out for your soul. You see a mud-soaked clearing, rain falling to the ground in large drops. This man is lying on his back in the muck, his hands holding open the maw of an enormous steel guard that stands over him, its front paws on his chest. The heavy rain falls over them, playing counterpoint to the grunts made by the opponents. Dead steel guard litter the ground around him, and the man's body shows signs of difficult battle. His clothing is torn, hanging in scraps in some places. Bites and scratches cover his arms and legs. A huge gash cuts across his forehead, blood and water mixing as they run down his face and drip into the mud. It takes all the man's efforts to keep the beast's jaws from clamping down. The man looks around wildly until his gaze finally lands on a large axe lying barely within arm's reach behind his head. The rain slowly covering it with grime and muddy water, he looks at the Stegar and then back at the axe, grim determination on his face. His arms are shaking and it seems he will not be able to hold the beast back for much longer. He takes a deep breath and wraps his right hand around the Stegar's bottom jaw, then lets go with his left hand, freeing the top of its head. The Stegar's mouth snaps shut on his right hand as his left shoots out above his head and grabs the handle of his axe. The Stegar grinds its teeth and pulls back, trying to free itself from his grip, blood dripping from its mouth onto his face. With a grunt that quickly becomes a bellow of pain, the man pulls his right hand down, bringing the beast's head closer to him, swinging the axe around as he does. The blade of the weapon piercing the Stegar's neck, and it yelps, its mouth popping open as it tries to step back off the man. His mangled hand can lose its... before his mangled hand can lose its grip, the man pulls and twists as hard as he can, trying to get the beast on the ground, using the Stegar's resistance to pull himself into a sitting position. He brings the axe down on its neck again, and again, and one final time as his head and his hand simultaneously come free. The head flies from his grip as he thrusts his hand behind his back to brace himself as he falls. As his mouth hits the ground and his full weight lands on it, a second bellow of pain erupts from his mouth. Breathing heavily, he brings his now mangled hand up to assess the damage. The little finger is gone, lost somewhere in the mud, and 2 fingers next to it are twisted, broken and torn, barely attached to his hand by bits of flesh. He sighs, grabbing both dangling fingers with his left hand. He grits his teeth and pulls. Ow. Your right hand has seen better days, Brad, but certainly brave, I'll give you that. I don't even know what a Stegar is. This painting depicts Gladforfen ruins on the canvas. A dwarf and an Olin debate philosophy on the other side of this curtain. Oh, okay, so it's like privacy tables. Can we talk to this mercenary? Often a good place to unwind between jobs. Let's have a quick look before we talk to the many people around here. The Stegos pelt is thick with dust and moths. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, I see. This is a Stegos. Kind of like very lion-esque, actually. If looking a bit more wilder, which is funny to say since obviously lions are from the wilds. Oh, actually, speaking of, yeah, we actually do have the bestiary. I don't know how you access it though. Aha! This would be interesting to have a proper look at. What are those? Ah, here we go. Wow! You are not very nice. Whatever that name is more typically known as just a rotten. It is a Delamungun that has been corrupted by the destruction of their home tree or Adra stone. They are as ugly as Delamungun are beautiful, spindly and emaciated, with cold tones to their skin. They are hostile towards all life, but rangers and druids are their most common foe, which makes sense. Skulder. What are wisps and or rich? Upon the onset of Wadrian's legacy, desperate families turned to animancers for help. Transferring a lost soul into a living body was out of the question, since almost such transplants resulted in an immediate awakening of the transplanted soul. The soul would regain the memories of a previous life rather than the recently born child. Animancers were pressed to come with a quick solution, though they cautioned against such haste. If an animal soul were put into a soulless child's body, the child might gain awareness, instinct, and volition. It was suggested that an animal soul possesses less individual personality and memory than Kith souls. The children might be able to grow into their new soul over time and imprint over the weaker animal spirit. The children did seem to regain awareness and volition, and for a time the saved children were believed to be cured. As they aged, however, it became clear that the saved were not like other children. They held little understanding or concern for social norms and often behaved strangely. Upon reaching adolescence, these differences became the manifest and physical changes of an entirely different kind. The first of these was an Orlan adolescent. Having come of age, she sprouted bestial fangs and acquired a feral appetite. Interesting. So yeah, they are hollow children, I believe, they're hollow-born, who've had animal souls transplanted into them. Interesting. They're of course only level 1. Shadows are only level 1 as well, but they kick my butt. Beetles. We have some... Oh, beetles are only level 1 as well. Oh no, sorry, they're level 5. I've defeated one. Wolves are level 5? Oh well, that would make sense. It's the smaller wolves, isn't it, that I've defeated? Like the baby wolves. Okay. It's an interesting nonetheless. Ooh. Well, people with unique names. That means that they might have something to tell me. So explore a little further before we say hello. We could probably be in here all this video. The most unfortunate tale of Favis and Bernat. Okay. That was a really eye-straining text there. Hello, holy hell, there's so many people to talk to.
I'll see what I can find.
Oh well, let us begin. Dash Oki. You see a grin. Okay. Feel free to read this one. It's slightly more mature again, as always. Not that bad, though, to be perfectly honest, but I don't know. I think it's just my opinion of my thoughts of reading it, I suppose. So feel free to have a read of that if you so wish. It's not bad. Not really. Dash Oki there, tempting a woman who is married. Bo Akaraya. You see a firm hand scribbling notes from an ancient, surprisingly sturdy-looking tome. Script precise pictures, small but clear. The monk runs his fingers across the paper lightly, page after page, searching for something. The script is ancient, almost illegible, but he perseveres, scrawling stacks and sheaves of notes, transcribing the book into something more comprehensible. Suddenly he starts scribbling hastily, eyes wide, pen a blur across the newly ink-splattered page. With a start he pushes out from the desk and closes the tome, sending waves of dust to coast around the room, and grins widely. He hurries to the exit, notes piled under his arm and a new adventure on his mind. Okay. And last we have Lexicum McGrig. You see a man praying soundlessly on the ground, lips moving to some ancient and unknowable hymn. Lying in his hands, a sword splutters in the blinding white light, banishing the darkness around him instantly to lurk in corners and shelves. He opens his eyes slowly, continuing his silent prayer as he adjusts to the new light, his face tight with concentration. He stands and begins to move deliberately towards an enormous iron door, strange symbols inscribed upon its rusted surface. His prayers get louder, gain substance as he gets closer. Blue eyes burn with fervour as the glowing tip of his sword touches the centre of the door and slides through. White light spreads across its surface, symbols flaring into life as the paladin chants. A gentle tone sounds ringing through the ancient structure, and the door begins to open. The symbols have disappeared along with the rust, and the paladin steps through into places unknown, bearing a light he is only now beginning to understand. Greetings, a fellow paladin. We've got Harrod and Nishana. Nishana's had probably a bit too much to drink. You see a group of people standing on a clear patch of earth surrounded by several motionless bodies. On the ground in the middle of the group is a small figure curled up to protect itself from kicking feet of the people standing around it. This woman is there, apart from the group, holding an enormous sword. She leans on it, using it almost like a crutch, hunched over and breathing heavily. She stares at the people and grunts, pulling herself upright and lifting the sword from the ground. She draws in a large breath, leans into a run and quickly closes the distance between herself and the group. A blood-chilling howl suddenly explodes from her. The mob freezes mid-kick and stares at the terrifying bull of a woman now charging it. She jumps at the last second, bending slightly and turning herself into a projectile, flying into the middle of the people assaulting the figure on the ground. Everyone topples as she flies into them. She hits the ground beyond them, rolling, leaping back, and turns to face them. She plants both her feet and lifts her sword, surveying the field. Suddenly she spins on her heel, swinging her sword with savage grace, cutting down the nearest of the assailants. Letting herself get pulled into the momentum of the spin, she brings her sword around, blade sideways, into the head of a would-be opponent. The bottom of the hilt shatters his temple, and he crumbles to the ground at her feet. She looks up, rage-filled eyes daring the remaining two men to approach. After a quick sideways glance at each other, they turn heel and run. One briefly looks back over his shoulder, ensuring she isn't following him. She slowly lets out a breath as she had been holding, and walks over to help the figure still huddled on the ground. Well, anyone would need a drink after that, but God knows how far in the past this actually took. And now we have Harrod Raoul. You see a man standing on a dock. Sailors, soldiers and prostitutes swarm around him, but he is watching the ship disappearing over the horizon. He should be glad his men didn't take his life along with his ship, but failure is almost as bad as death for a Valalian, and the gods only know he hadn't fared any better in his family's mercantile business. It's almost a relief to see the last herald of his failure sail into the distance, sparing him the need to go back to his father and admit defeat once again. Besides, with sharp wits and an eye for opportunity, there's always a chance for a comeback. He pulls a flask from his hip and takes a long drink. There will be time for that later. He adjusts the flap of his eye patch and finds the tower of the brothel. He plots a new course for the evening, a grin on his face. Fair enough. Pirate or merchant, we will probably never know. I got a sneaky suspicion that these are all just flavor text, rather than actual people we can encounter in our party or gain as our companions. But I like that they have actually went into, there's a good amount of people as a watcher we can peer into their souls. It's not like a rare ability. Well, it's rare for a character, but there's quite a few people we can use it on. So can we speak to these individuals? He's busy filing off a spur. A burly mourner raises a hand in greeting. Ifa nods at you, a pint in one hand and a mace slung over her shoulder. Okay, so maybe we can't speak to them just yet, but maybe later. An Owen woman nods at you. Maybe this is actually another party.
And well met.
Oh, here's someone. As in, maybe this is another party just relaxing after a long day at work. Two-tone weasel, I guess that is. An Orlan male relaxes with his feet propped up on the table. Patches of dark brown skin peek out from under a full mane of blue-green hair. He and this Orlan woman with him exchange laughs and comments with a trio on a nearby table, and he spins a dagger in his hand. Looks like you've seen a night or two in the wilds. Joining us for a drink? Who are all of you? The name's Two-Tone Weasel, and lady next to me is Key. We've had our fun with the expeditions, but we're hoping to try a little peace and quiet. For the next few weeks, anyway. The man at the next table nods at you. I'm Dreadshot Daedron. This is Hurdy and Ifa. We were part of a separate expedition teams, but we both suffered losses and decided to band together. Beasts, barbarians, biracs. It's a dangerous time to be an adventurer, but a prosperous one too. And here's to many more prosperous journeys. Is there something you wanted? No, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I figured. Another adventurer party. Another nice little touch. I would like to go on these expeditions. When I first started and I did my test play, I was playing as a hunter, and when I was speaking to Casca, one of the options you can say to her is that you'd be interested in a life of adventure, and she recommends joining the expeditions. So we have Roy Nugent here. You see a half-consumed ale slosh its way across the distance to his mouth, spilling across the stains of food long past. Glazed eyes glance at the brawl across the room, gaining further as the fight extends through the room. Another ale, he murmurs to the bartender, downing his drink and turning towards the wall. He pulls a picture from his pocket, a painting of a young child, all brown hair and green eyes, and holds it above a candle. It does not burn. Years later, he begins to sing. The bar mess of broken chairs and wounded pride, and they all listen for a moment before continuing their drinks. Surf conversations. His ache is felt across the room. His sad story reminds them of their own sad stories. When he finishes singing, a silence hangs in the air, palpable among the smoke and the sweat, and the yeasty smell of beer-infused exhalation. He is the first to break the silence, ordering a round of ale for the room. The general dinner conversation sparks and resumes, but the mirth is now tempered with far-off memories and thoughts. We've heard about this surf just in the last video. It seems to be a type of narcotic that people drink. Or people take anyway. Maybe not. Maybe they don't drink it. And now we have these three and one more. Look at a gentleman over there. So first of all we have Arishti, Tungsten. You see a fire burning slowly on the side of a winding road, unmanned. There seems to be no fuel, no wood or oil for it to consume, no hay or twigs. Despite this, it roars, crackles, wails in the wind. It takes you a moment, but you begin to notice a figure in the flames. Its shaking hands cradle a young face, molten red tears marring the skin, the colour of coal. The boy cowers, flame coating him as he holds his knees to his chest. In the distance, a man approaches, faceless. He extends a hand to the frightened child, who considers it warily before taking it. The flames die down, leaving his limbs and settling on his head like obedient pets. All tears dried, they walk together, fire and death, hand in hand. Oh, I wonder if that means he said it was a death god, like, which would make sense. That would probably calm him down if he saw one of a familiar race to himself. I do like the godlike's character designs. Magirus. You see a wizard playing illusions in a town square, fingers plucking colour and sound from the air and weaving scenes of beauty and fright. A crowd of onlookers gasp and cheer, enthralled with the display, all but one boy standing off to the side, mouth agape. Green eyes are pale with wonder, vision after vision playing out before him, and something inside the boy clicks. Without warning, he bolts, disappearing into the ground and pushing and shoving desperately. The mage finishes his show soon after, a giant silver dragon descending through the crowd and 1,000 stars exploding into nothingness. Collecting the coins, he walks around the clapping crowd, bowing and nodding at each he passes, until a small sack is dropped into his hands. The boy stands for a moment before him, small and still, and begs the wizard to apprentice him. He glances at the heavy bag, weighing it and the boy carefully. Finally he nods and flicks gently at the bag, which disappears. The boy grins. "How do you do that?" he asks, but the illusionist merely winks. Now, is this the illusionist, or is it the boy? I'd like to think it's the boy, actually. You have a character called the Vulture. This is not going to be a happy soul. Maybe. I could be wrong. You see a hand curled and bruised, staked to the floor with a bent metal spike. Blood covers the floor and drips from the furnishings and walls. This man looks up from the body he is crouched over to survey the carnage he caused to the family in whose house he now skulks. 4 bodies total. A woman, 2 young men and a girl lie blindfolded on the ground. Their legs are bound and both hands are attached to the floor with spikes. He has lifted the woman's blindfold and is currently doing something to her eyes. Oh dear. He pulls back a small blade and covers the eyes again, gently patting the blindfold. He stands and looks around, seemingly satisfied with his handiwork. Suddenly his breath quickens, hearing someone approach the door to the room. He bounces in place, excitement almost overwhelming him, then rushes to the back of the room, concealing himself in the shadows. From his vantage, he sees the bodies are perfectly arranged, each one facing the door, welcoming the man of the house back, arms outstretched as if in an embrace. The door opens as he slowly pulls another spike from his belt, the tip of his tongue playing across his teeth in anticipation. Yeah, I figured you were an asshole. And last but not least, you see an impressive gathering of wild Orlands in ceremonial dress, shaded by the corpse of ancient oaks. Underneath the largest oak stand 2 young Orlands, hands clasped, eyes clear as they promise to care for and love one another in the joining of their clans. An older Orland steps forward to speak, beard seeming to sprout from directly underneath his eyes, and declares their union complete. The jubilant Orland clans carry the newly wedded couple away to their tent with snorts of laughter and crude jokes, leaving the older Orland to sit alone beneath the age-old oak. He sighs, observing the scene in the distance. He whispers a quiet benediction, glad for their gladness, and melts into the tree without another word. He has seen enough of happiness for one day. Interesting. Orland can merge with nature. Well, trees at least. So that was a lot to take in, a lot of flavour text. Some people may not have cared for that at all, some people may enjoy it. I personally enjoyed it. And when we come back, we can continue exploring Copper Lane. Let's have a look at our side quest, actually. Something unusual is happening in a house in Copper Lane. He asked me to return the ring. The house is located next to the marketplace. Let's take a step outside at least so we can get our bearings. Ah, okay. Yeah, the dungeons are being constructed. Here's the marketplace. Ah, there's Pernsnick's house. I'm never going to pronounce his name correctly, by the way. I think I pronounced it about 4 or 5 different times in the previous video. It's one of those names that I would struggle with. Admithsten Expedition Hall. Now that's going to be a place I definitely want to check out. Okay. No, we'll leave it here. We went on long enough. This episode could probably just be titled A Goose and Fox by the amount of time we've spent there. It seems like Ada wants to speak to us. So we'll begin the episode with that. So this has been AnthWolf, and I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope you all take care. And I'll see you for more Pillars of Eternity in the next video. Bye bye now.